are the song lines that used to sing me home. There's no more black boys.
What we can benefit from as an industry is what's the Indigenous lens on storytelling.
The fences trap the kangaroos, koalas and emu too, along the song lines that used to sing me home.
I think that Indigenous people are vastly underrepresented in advertising for a lot of reasons, but mostly the path into advertising is quite linear right now.
Got to find different pathways to bring people into the industry, and I think that's got to start at schools and in communities that we haven't approached before.
I don't think there's been enough awareness. I don't think it's been on the right people's agendas over time. This will require a completely different mindset, right? And even understanding that you have to have that, I think is going to be new for a lot of people.
Born again from the flames, do you see my country?
We are about unique, original, authentic ideas, and you've got to look at how you're going to continually come up and deliver better ideas than you did the day before. And I think when you start to unpack that and you look at creative cultures, you look at talent, you look at the makeup of creative departments and just the agency generally, you start to look at where the deficiencies are, or you start to look at, well, maybe there could be another way. Maybe there could be a better way. And that's when you start to look at diversity and how do you kind of broaden that.
We have been an industry that has hired people who look like ourselves. That's a very comfortable thing to do. It's a very easy thing to do. I think certain people have been attracted to the industry, and we haven't really gone far enough out there to even say, hey, look at this industry, you could be part of this, and we want you. It's a really important thing that someone can look at the media and go, that's me, I recognise that, and everything will be better if we can do that.
And I think the interesting thing now is you realise it should be part of our culture. You should actually know what's going on. So when you say it's important for our industry, it is important for our industry, but it's a much bigger issue than that. It's important for Australia.
If you want to create authentic work, then the people that are telling the stories, that are creating that work, should be speaking in their language, right? Their tone of voice, with their personality. And unfortunately, I think that for too long, the advertising industry in Australia has been populated by probably people like me, white, middle-aged, middle class, and those stories are pretty boring now. No one needs more of those kind of stories. So I do think that there needs to be a more diverse storytelling and more diverse people in creative departments, but across agencies telling those stories.
I think the advertising and media industries have a unique problem in that the pathways in are very kind of regimented, and what happens is you end up with a lot of the similar sort of people with similar sort of backgrounds actually getting into this industry. The pathways in are so kind of geared towards white, private school educated people that I think that's definitely the issue, and I think people at the moment we're making good strides into changing that.
I love that creativity can have the chance to change people's lives, and we have the potential to use this creative power to influence and change behaviour in a positive way, and I think that should be a real big focus, and there is a shift, and that's really important to me.
But it's about identity, and it's about being able to bring an Indigenous people into our agency and being able to maintain that identity, and that's really what we want to be able to do, because we want that other perspective. We don't want to try and change the way someone thinks or the way that they go about their methods of analysis or whatever, because that has no value to us whatsoever. So I guess it's about being sensitive to that and being able to embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges with our industry is we are problem solvers, and so we like to think that things can be done quickly and we want to tick off boxes and get things done, and I don't think that's the right mindset to apply to this conversation. It will be a lifelong and career-long journey. So it's one thing to hire people from diverse backgrounds, it's another to understand that with that comes a requirement to adapt your culture so that it is more inclusive.
Well, I guess I'm ashamed to say I think I've learnt more about foundational Aboriginal culture through my children and the education that they're receiving than I did my own. I can honestly think back to my high school education, which was one I thought was a good one at the time, and I think I did one class on Indigenous culture. And when I say one class, I don't mean one class that runs for a semester, one 45-minute lesson. Age, race, location, income, these are all variables that marketers have been very familiar with for 100 years. And so it's not a big leap to say if our customer is diverse, then to truly understand the customer, we need to reflect that diversity inside the agency to come up with better work.
How you stay true and connected to the deeply sort of spiritual connection with the land and culture and people and society of an Indigenous Australia, whilst at the same time connecting and bringing all the richness of that to a more mainstream commercial Australia.
We are the oldest living storytellers. We're the best storytellers. We do things visually, we tell stories well, and we pass on those stories through generations after generations, accurately remembered and told by elders to younger people, so that those stories can live on forever. And they're the stories that need to be told more of.
It seems like such a natural fit to take the oldest, most creative, artistic storytelling culture on earth and not to apply that to an industry that bases itself on storytelling, creativity and artistry is a massive drop catch.
And as far as Indigenous cultures go, we haven't done a great job, but we are really trying now, I think, to right that.
The more that we knock down some of those kind of rote ways of thinking and that old way of thinking, the more interesting this career in this industry is going to be, because it's going to allow for more stories from different sources. And so it's just going to get better for creative people, I think.
We've got to have from the ground up. We've got to bring them in, nurture the talent, teach not to change, but teach just the way of working with people to get the best out of them. No doubt there'll be Indigenous creative directors. Are one of the most creative cultures on earth.
Is so inspiring and so stimulating and brings you on and makes you a better person. It gives you thoughts and ideas that you wouldn't have necessarily had. It makes you more curious. It opens your eyes to different worlds and different ideas and different ways of thinking.
The message I'd like to give is that it is more inclusive than it used to be.
Please consider our industry. It's a dynamic. It's never been as dynamic as it is today. It's changed dramatically in the last probably 5 years in ways that none of us even thought were imaginable.
Who drive business forward. We've got production managers. We've got strategists. Having Indigenous strategists would be freaking amazing, because then we'd be able to point our creative arrows in the right direction.
And it will at times be uncomfortable and challenging, and that's something that we need to not be afraid of or shy away from. And I think that people expecting overnight change is unrealistic. It's a journey. But I think that that's no excuse not to start the journey.
Will we come together when we start again? Will we listen to